You know, Jesus is not against public prayer. He's against a kind of public prayer that you and I should avoid. Apparently, there's a wrong way to pray, and Jesus is warning us to not do this. Listen, if you find yourself frustrated, bored, discouraged, overwhelmed when you're trying to read the Bible, and you want to learn how to read the Bible and study correctly, you're in the right place. We're going to walk through Matthew chapter 6, verse 5. I repeat, Matthew chapter 6, verse 5, where we start to lead into the Lord's Prayer. Jesus says this, "And when you pray, you must not be like the hypocrites." Okay, so this warning right here to not be like the hypocrites is a part of a greater overall point Jesus has made. When you read the Bible, whatever you're reading, for instance, we're here in Matthew chapter 6, verse 5. Make sure you read this verse in its context. Make sense of what comes before it. What is the main point of the passage that comes before this section in Scripture? Well, Jesus just said in Matthew chapter 6, the beginning, he says, don't practice your righteousness like those hypocrites, right? He's going to now say, look, don't pray like the hypocrites. And then after this, he's going to talk about not fasting like the hypocrites. And this is a part of the Sermon on the Mount. So as I read verse 5, I want to think about the fact Jesus just said, when you give, make sure you don't make it this big public display and spectacle of your greatness. That's hypocritical. So he's warned against a wrong way to give, where hypocrites are all about themselves. They're just interested in their self-benefit and making a public spectacle. And now we get to prayer, and I want to think about how those ideas might relate, okay? This word "and" is pretty much putting this little section right here in addition to what he just said. So it flows like this. Don't give like the hypocrites, and don't pray like the hypocrites, and don't fast like the hypocrites. Right? So those are good things to do, fasting, giving, praying, but there's a wrong way to do them. Okay, when you pray, you must not be like the hypocrites. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight just in orange anything that he's explicitly telling us is like the hypocrites, because you can, if you don't keep reading and you just stopped here, right? You read the beginning of verse 5 and then you walk away, you would miss the point of what being a hypocrite means to be. I know that was very confusing. What I'm saying is he's specifically calling out something about the hypocrites that you should not be like or imitate. Right? So we'll let Jesus explain what specifically the hypocrites do that we should not imitate. They love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corners. Is that bad? No. It's so that they may be seen, or that they may be seen by others. So what specifically is wrong with the hypocrites? Well, when you read the Bible, pay attention to words like this, and I'm going to use my blue highlighter to make this very clear. Words like for, words like and, conjunctions. This word for acts like a because. So it reads, hey, when you pray, and by the way, the assumption is that you are praying. When you pray, not if, you must not be like the hypocrites. Don't let your prayer life be an imitation of the hypocrites. Why? Because they love to stand and pray in the synagogues, right? The place of worship and prayer, the local place of worship and prayer, and at the street corners. So there are two places that are noted here that I want to pay attention to, right? Synagogues and street corners, right? Just the public place of commerce and hanging out, and then the place of specifically designed for worship and gathering to seek God. In both contexts, these hypocrites, what's wrong with the way they pray is they love to stand and pray so that they may be seen by others. Okay, so Jesus is not against public prayer. He's against a kind of public prayer. So I'm going to highlight in orange what about them is wrong. Well, they just want to be seen, right? That's what they're concerned with. And they love to stand. So when you see in Scripture an example that you're called to imitate or not imitate, or a metaphor or an analogy, right, or some kind of illustration or model, take note of what specifically is the author or the speaker emphasizing about that thing. So if I just told you, don't pray like the hypocrites, well, now it's on you to make sense of that. You have to kind of figure out, well, in what way? That's exactly what we should be asking. When you read the Bible, ask questions. In what ways should I not be like the hypocrites? Because apparently they're doing something right, they're praying. So I guess in that sense, I should be like them. But what specifically about their prayer life should I not imitate? Well, we'll see this. I'm going to put a number 1 here. What we should not imitate. And it's this. They love to stand. In other words, they love the public display and spectacle of themselves, right? Number 2, they love to do that. Here's their motivation. Because they want to be seen. It's all about people's perceptions. It's all about their public image. It's all about how they appear, how they sound, how they look, and they're concerned with the opinion of other people, the opinions of other people, multiple, okay? So when you read the Bible, ask questions. Read and study slow enough, not so slow that you make no progress, but slow enough that you actually have time to ask questions like, well, what about the hypocrites is wrong? What do they do? They're praying, that's good. Well, they love to stand and pray. Is that bad? No, it's their reasoning. They want to be seen. That is why this becomes an issue. They love to stand publicly, which in and of itself is not wrong, but it's the heart posture behind it. They want to make a public spectacle of themselves with their prayers. So now their means of communication with God becomes a way to impress people, and that's wrong, right? So we should not pray like that. He says, truly I say to you, okay? Now he's about to continue expanding on this idea or explaining what about them is wrong, right? Truly I say to you, which means pay attention. Truly, you really need to hear what I'm saying. They have received their reward. So I'm going to highlight here anything relating to the concept of reward, because I've read the passage ahead of time, and I know that that's going to be something that will be repeated a few times. And when you read the Bible, pay attention to any repeating ideas, any repeating words. Maybe the word reward will be used multiple times, and that indicates to me, hey, that word is important to the point of this passage. This word is like a flag that goes up saying, hey, pay attention to me. I'll help you understand the main point of this passage. The main point has to do with something regarding rewards. If the word reward repeats quite a bit, which, it will. The concept of reward here, you'll see this in the giving passage section. You'll see this in the fasting passage section. Reward is a key point. Okay, so pay attention to words that repeat, but also don't just pay attention to repeating words, pay attention to repeating ideas, meaning any words that are interchangeably used. So words that are synonymous with reward. Maybe I notice that the word reward is used, but I notice other ideas that are synonymous with it, like, gaining something of value or getting a good consequence for my action, right? So they've received their reward. So as a Bible student, we should ask, what's the reward they've received? All right. Well, it already tells us, if you read before, what their reward is. The reward for them, in their eyes, what they were going after, is the really impressing people, the approval of people, right? The acceptance of people, the esteem that other people gives them, the applause, all of that. What others can give them, right? What people can give, that is their true reward they're going after. And Jesus is saying, look, they have already gotten their reward. Sometimes when you read the Bible, you might skip over ideas and you need to backtrack a little bit just to make sense of what was said before. Maybe you missed it. Sometimes when you read the Bible, you just need to backtrack and go, do I see any of these ideas in the previous section that I maybe skipped over? The concept of something that is valuable to someone, the concept of someone gaining something, the concept of someone going after something and its gain in their eyes, right? This word but is going to tell us something different. I'm going to circle it, but. Pay attention to words like this when you read the Bible. He just said what the hypocrites do, why they do it, and what they get. Now he says, but when you pray. So the word but here is noting a contrast. The difference between, he's about to note the difference between your prayer life and what that's supposed to be versus the hypocrite's prayer life and what their life is like. Okay? So he's just told you what the hypocrites do, and now he's going to tell you what you should do with prayer, which is contrasted with, every single element of the prayer life he's already put forth. The way they pray, why they pray, the reward for their prayers, right? When you pray, go into your room, shut the door, and pray to your Father who is in secret. Now, Jesus does say, so I'm going to highlight in orange, when you pray, the good example, or how you should pray. He just told us how we should not pray. Now he's going to tell us how we should pray. I'm going to highlight that in orange. Anything that has to do with how we should pray. When you pray, go into your room, which seems to note privacy, right? Or secrecy. Shut the door. And pray to your Father who is in secret, right? And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. So there are a few things. When something is being contrasted in the Bible, and there are two things that the author or the speaker is saying, look, these two things are different. It's on us to figure out, well, what specific differences are they emphasizing? What is the main difference Jesus wants us to see between the hypocrite's prayer life and the way we should pray? Well, he already noted a few things, so let's just pay attention. Let's think through, as we read this, let's think through how the hypocrites pray, and maybe we'll find some both similarities and key differences. When you pray, go into your room. So, what I notice here is the environment. Okay? The environment is different than how the hypocrites, how they position themselves. They strategically put themselves in the corners in front of lots of people so they can make a spectacle of themselves. Jesus says you should not do that. Now again, he's not against public prayer. He's against this public spectacle and me strategically placing myself in front of people so they hear how spiritual I am, right? So the environment is different. Shut the door. Rather than making it an open door policy where everyone sees, secrecy is what he says to go after. But it's not like Jesus is saying the only way to pray is privately. He's noting the kind of heart a believer should have when they pray. It's not about people's opinions, it's about God's. The proof of that is that I will pray in any environment. I'll go, and I have a private prayer life where no one sees me except God. He says, pray to your Father. Another difference between the hypocrite's prayer life and the way we should pray is, you might say, the opinion or the point of concern. The hypocrite is concerned with people's opinions and their self-image. We should be concerned when we pray with God's opinion. I want Him to approve of what I'm doing, not people, right? So the focus, the emphasis is on God, not how people see me, but on how God sees me and what He thinks about what I'm doing, right? He's in secret. Everyone else is in public, on the street corners, in the synagogue. That's where people are. And again, Jesus is not against praying in those environments and atmospheres. He's against a kind of prayer. It's more about the heart posture more than it is about where you are. But Jesus does say the difference between the hypocrite's prayer life and yours should be that you have private prayer life and that God is your concern, right? And your Father, who sees in secret, will reward you. This word "and" again connects this concept of God. That's the wrong. I'll highlight it in blue. This word "and" tells us that God rewarding us in secret is related to shutting our door and praying to our Father in private. He connects that idea with the word "and." It's as if the result or the outcome of you praying in private with God is that your Father will reward you. And Jesus doesn't say what the reward is. He just says your Father who sees in secret will reward you. So we have a question that we need to answer. What is the reward that Jesus has in mind? When you read the Bible, ask questions. And I would encourage you to read the rest of Matthew chapter 6. Pay attention to anything that has to do with rewards, things that are valuable, treasure, money, anything that you would consider valuable or as gain or profit. Pay attention to anything relating to those ideas and highlight it. Then come back here, and because this is a part of a greater sermon, right? This little section right here is a part of the Sermon on the Mount. So whatever Jesus is saying here is going to connect to what he said in Matthew chapter 5, what he says in Matthew chapter 7, right? The ideas are going to flow together. They might not be topically the same, but they're going to relate to each other. So one of the ways when I read the Bible and I have questions, one of the ways I make sense of questions that I have is just by continuing to read or by backtracking and going back to what I already read and seeing if there's something there that I missed that relates to a reward, right? But no matter what, let's think about, as we end this, let's think about what the reward possibly could be. Well, we know that it's in secrecy. Number one, it has to do with God seeing and no one else does. It's that element of secrecy and having a real, vibrant, private relationship with God. The second thing to think about is that God is the one who gives this reward. So there are two characteristics of this reward that can help me make sense of it already. Is that it has to do with secrecy. Maybe the Father dispenses it secretly, or maybe it's in a public way, but either way, having a private prayer life is the key to having this kind of a reward. And number two, it's something only the Father can give that people cannot. So the rewards are different. This is the last difference between the hypocrite and the way we should pray, is that their concern is different, their environment where they pray strategically is different, and the reward is different than how we should pray and what we should go after. All right? So go think about that. I'll tell you right now, the reward, very simply, is God himself. And you can validate that by reading Matthew 5, 6, and 7 as one unit, and then look at anything relating to the concept of reward or gain or profit or value or treasure, and then come back and see if that is true. I believe that God is the ultimate reward. He gives you more of himself. Closer relationship with him is the reward. Intimacy with God is the reward. So again, Jesus is not against public prayer. He's against a kind of public prayer that is imbalanced and has no private prayer life. A public prayer that is all about people's opinions and what people can give me and how I sound, and strategically putting myself in front of people and caring about my self-image and being prideful and self-righteous. That kind of public prayer life that has no private prayer life attached to it is what Jesus is against. If you guys struggle reading the Bible, you're frustrated, bored, discouraged, overwhelmed, you don't know where to start, let me recommend that you check out our completely free online 40-day Bible study program linked in the description below. Go check that out. We also have a 27-day program and an 11-day program if 40 days is too much for you. I get it, okay? So you can check out those programs in the link below or at abovereproachministry.com. And that's all I got for you guys today. I can't talk. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next Bible study walkthrough. Bye. Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do that and hit the bell so you can be notified of any future videos that come out. And check out abovereproachministry.com. We have completely free Bible study courses, a 40-day program, a 27-day, and 11-day program, all kinds of free resources. You can get a copy of my book. You can join our online church. You can get some merch. We have a bunch of stuff at abovereproachministry.com, and it's also linked in the description below. Go check that out, and thanks for watching.